Hello, welcome back, students. Today's presentation will be on the respiratory system. But before we do that, let's begin in prayer. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Lord, we send out a prayer for all of our families and for our students individually, that they can stay healthy and safe, that they can get their schoolwork done and still have time to support their families, find some time to connect with friends. Through social distancing, and that soon that we can return to normal life. Amen. Okay, so respiratory system, let's jump right in. The function and the main function of the respiratory system is really to bring oxygen to the body and then get rid of carbon dioxide from the body. This diagram here kind of shows a lung, and oxygen's coming in. That oxygen then gets delivered to a body cell. This is like a cell with its nucleus there. And then carbon dioxide will leave the cell, travel to the lung where it can be breathed out. A couple vocab words. We talked about internal and external respiration with the circulatory system. Internal respiration is between the body and the blood. So it's that exchange of gas that happens at each individual cell in the body. External respiration is between the atmosphere and the blood. This happens at the lungs. We breathe in, and then eventually that air from the atmosphere goes to our lungs where it can go into the blood. Here's a little bit of the anatomy of a lung. You'll have to know these things. Right lobe. Our right lung has 3 lobes. Left lung only has 2. That's because the heart sits a little bit more to the left side in our body, and it takes up some space. It's on the bottom of the lungs is the diaphragm, and then the rib cage surrounds them. You do need to know about the pleural membrane. That secretes some fluid to reduce some friction because the lungs are always expanding and contracting. Because of the alveoli, and we've talked about alveoli a little bit, huge surface area in the lungs. This picture shows a little bit of how it works. You have these bronchioli tubes eventually end at alveoli, which are little tiny sacs, and the lung is just full of them. This picture doesn't really do it justice. It is full of them. It's not like they're just here or here or here or here. These little branches branch out everywhere like a super dense tree. So how does gas exchange actually happen? Well, it happens at the alveolar membrane. So the outside space of each alveoli is next to some capillaries, and capillaries are small blood cells, if you remember, and that's where the oxygen dissolves in or the carbon dioxide dissolves out. And it does dissolve. Concentration gradients control the movement. Whenever your blood enters the lungs, it doesn't have very much oxygen in it, less oxygen than the air has, so the oxygen is going to naturally want to diffuse into the blood. Carbon dioxide the opposite way. Your blood has a whole bunch of carbon dioxide because it just picked it up from the cells when it gets to the lungs, so it's going to want to get rid of all of it, and this picture kind of shows that. Notice how there's a lot of carbon dioxides in the blood and not very much in the air, so the carbon dioxides diffuse that way. There's lots of oxygen in the air, but not much in the blood. So the oxygen, that's just concentration gradients. Now this one's going to be the path of the air. This is all the anatomical structures as soon as it enters the body. So you go nasal cavity, pharynx, the epiglottis covers the opening into the trachea, making sure no food gets in there, or vice versa if you're eating. Or it'll cover the trachea and make sure all the food goes down the esophagus. Larynx branches out into 2 bronchi. You can see here then bronchioli. Those are smaller tubes and eventually into the alveoli. This is a picture which kind of shows that. Nasal cavity, pharynx, the epiglottis would be right there. There's the trachea. Okay, and then you see the bronchi and then bronchioli. And then it doesn't really show the alveoli, but you can kind of see all the structures we're talking about. And you need to know all those structures. Now, how is blood actually carried in, or how is oxygen actually carried in the blood? Well, small amounts will be dissolved into the plasma, just dissolved in there. Plasma is a liquid, and then most of it attaches to the red blood cells. On each red blood cell is a hemoglobin, which is a protein that has iron in it. Each hemoglobin contains 4 irons, and those irons can each hold 1 oxygen. 250 million hemoglobin in each red blood cell. So it's not just one. There's a lot of hemoglobin in each blood cell, each able to